Welcome to the Four Wards Podcast. Hey, what's up? It's Eric Bra, voice of Draven, Jerks, and Vel'Koz. And you're listening to the Four Wards Podcast, here to help you move forward in League.
Hey guys, welcome to another Four Wards podcast. I'm your host for the evening, Azdorishan, joined with three fantastic guys. Let's go down the line. Doom, how you doing?
Hey, good. How you doing?
Oh, not too bad. Been a good week. Haber, how you doing?
Yeah, pretty good.
Good stuff. All right. And Froz is here as well.
I'm doing excellent, but you didn't ask how I was doing.
How are you doing?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Excellent.
I was just we're in a little bit
asshole.
of a,
It's just that we don't care.
We got a really fun show planned for today.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff to do today. But
Before we get into stuff, we got a lot of announcements to get through. So we talked about it last week. Coaching. We've received some requests already, and we're going to be getting back to you shortly. And if you heard last time, we talked about it on the T-Force proper, but we're getting a system set up in the works on the new website where we'll be able to do some stuff from there. But for right now, keep sending in your request. We're going to return emails to you with some details that we need, just, basic stuff to get you some information. Next up, we are planning on doing a super episode or a supersode for this podcast here. It's come to our attention, there's some really basic things that we just need to get out of the way, really basic concepts. So we want to do that all into one episode. So if there's things that you want to know about on a very basic level, we're going to ask you guys to send those in to our email, forwards@trinityforcepodcast.com, or on Twitter at four wards podcast with the number 4. And make sure to use the hashtag supersode, because I want that to be a thing.
What do you mean, Haber?
Honestly, I don't want to put a label on it here. Anything that you guys think is basic and can be covered relatively easily, send it in, and we'll try to condense it down into that episode.
Yes.
So that's that. Also, other things we are getting set up right now is our whole series on lanes, specific lanes, your AD carry, your support, and all that jazz. And we are working with Pseudonaut. He is a challenger support player, and he's been writing books called The Art of League. He's been working with some other people. He just posted to the League subreddit today about his new book, The Art of Mid. He collaborated with Big Fat LP. And we're going to have both of those guys on the show here when we start talking about doing those. So get hyped for those. They're going to be great. I can't believe we're going to have to find some way to have a whole episode, just about supports.
Yeah, they're almost as good as
other way
us.
around. Other way around. It's going to be hard to fit that all into one episode.
Are you sure?
So,
I don't know. It's pretty.
Support is almost as important as jungle, so I'm pretty excited about it.
oh my god.
Yeah, and jungle is almost as important as mid, which
Got
is a
'em.
little bit more important than ADC.
Okay. Well,
Fact.
I'll agree that you're wrong here, and we're going to move on. Last announcement of the night here. Our RP contest has ended. I want to say thanks to everyone for sending in your goals. We had a ton of them come in, and we just used a random number generator to figure out who got the $10 in RP here. So we have 2 winners, Chris and Jonah Gilgamesh.
That's it? You're not even going to do a drum roll or a big, get excited?
Why?
And the winners are...
No, these are announcements. People don't tune in for the announcements. we got shit to do, man. So we'll be contacting you guys directly to give you your RP codes in the next couple days here.
Yeah.
So look out for those.
Speaking
And
of
Congrats, guys, by the way, and thanks for everyone writing in and tweeting in and hitting us up with your goals. So thank you so much.
Yeah. And speaking of shit to do, let's get right into it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Hell yes.
what?
Did I miss something?
No. I was leading into it here. So besides all the goals we've been getting, we've also been getting a lot of questions from you guys as well. So we just decided we need to sit down and tackle some of these already, because we've just got a ton of them to get through. So today is going to be a mailbag day already. This is We're episode 5 and we're at a mailbag.
That's kind of weird, right?
That's
So
fucking
happy.
awesome. That's so awesome. I'm so pumped about that.
I'm pretty happy.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, and these were actually, some of them were directed to us. They weren't just given.
Most of them were, honestly.
That's pretty
There
cool,
was-
too.
Yeah.
The show is only going to get better if you write in
Oh,
and
totally.
say what you want us to talk about, and we can sort of tailor it to try and talk about what you want to hear. And we're so glad about the overwhelming amount of stuff we received for a podcast that's still relatively new. Really,
Hashtag Supersode.
really happy that you guys wrote in.
That's going to be awesome. Okay,
good.
so let's just jump right into it.
Okay, so
We're going to... You go ahead.
We're
You
so
go ahead.
excited that we keep cutting each other off. That's how excited we are.
I'm going to read the question.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. So Danny, Brochacho3000, writes in. He's wanting to know... He struggles on deciding when it's best and most effective to back in lane, and he talks about top lane in specific, but we kind of all agreed that top and ADC have very similar conundrums when it comes to when to back. So basically the question is, I still struggle on deciding when it is the best and most effective time to back, after I kill the enemy laner, after I've gathered a set amount of gold, or when I've pushed the wave up to the enemy tower to buy me time to come back. So when do I go back? When's the best time to go back? And I think Haber, you're definitely probably the best suited for this one as you main ADC, and you definitely
Sure.
know how this works. So let's go ahead
Yeah,
and take the
I mean,
floor.
it's not just ADC, though. This really
Yeah.
applies to all lanes, and it really comes down to like a simple concept of pros and cons and weighing out, if I go back right now, am I going to be ahead of the enemy laner if they were to stay there or if they were to go back as well? And there are a lot of different scenarios, like you pointed out, like if you kill them or if they have to go back, if you're able to just keep farming, whatever. There's a lot of different things. And I think a big thing you have to realize, if you're like an AD carry especially, like I have to know what my specific item goals are for when I go back. Like for my first back, I'm saying, okay, I want to at least get my BF sword and possibly some potions. So I'm looking to go back around 1600, 1650 gold.
But
And
I mean,
you can...
ideally, like that's what you want to do. But what happens if it doesn't
Yeah.
work out that way?
Then you have to just...
Real question.
Yeah, so we'll take this from the positive aspect here. Say that you killed your enemy laner, and the first thing you want to do is try to push the wave if you can in time, because you're then denying the enemy experience and gold. But you want to make sure you're going back in that time, because your enemy laner has a chance to back now and get his gold spent into more items. So he's going to come back to lane, and he's going to be as strong as you were before. So you have to make sure you're going back then to counteract that, sort of spend your own gold so you can maintain that lead. And at that point, whatever you can buy in your build path, go for. But don't forget, like always save like at least 75 gold for reward.
Or
You
a
know.
couple pots, or a couple pots.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, pots are incredibly important.
Especially early. Especially early.
This question is really a great question, but it's a question that doesn't have one answer that fits
Yeah.
everything. It's an incredibly situational answer. You mentioned in your email, Bro Chacho, after I kill the enemy laner, that is actually a really good time to back. But the way I look at it is there's a trade-off to when you are in lane and when you aren't in lane. And ideally, you want to be in lane without an inherent item disadvantage. So if I kill my enemy laner and I can deny him CS by pushing to the turret, I have time to safely get back, and I don't have to worry about my turret being taken.
Yeah.
The biggest thing you have to consider, besides just what am I going to buy with whatever amount of gold I have right now, is what's going to happen if I back right now? Will I lose a turret? Will they group up at Dragon? What is am I safe to get away with this back? Or am I near vision? Or is somebody going to kill me before I finish this recall? All these
Yeah.
things are things to
Yeah.
consider on top of just, I have 1400 gold. I can't afford the BF sword, so what am I going to buy?
Yeah.
Well,
One
you
thing
can-
I think is really important, especially in top lane, is using your teleport. I think a lot of people will sit on that teleport and like they'll just stay in lane when they're low because like, oh, I got to stay for this extra 100 gold or something. No, when you have that teleport, if you start to get low, then as far as like laning phase go, you can go back and blow that teleport, especially early in the game if you're in like a disadvantageous matchup where you're just getting poked and poked and poked, it's better to just go back, heal up, and come back at that point using your teleport.
A note on teleport before Doom, because I know you want to say something. Remember that, yes, it is a lowered cooldown when you go to turrets, but also that teleport is your teleport. And if you teleport to lane and someone gets mad at you, just remember and be like, this is my summoner. Like, you don't get to choose when and how I use this summoner. If I'm going to use it to get back to lane,
top laner.
then you're going to use it to get back to lane. And you should be that strong, independent top laner, because you are. You're playing top lane, buddy. Like, you're on an island.
Single laners. All the single laners.
That's good. Anyway, just wanted to make sure, like I said that. Like, that's your summoner. Don't feel obligated to give it to bot lane because they need help. It's yours.
Well, and there's another thing to consider with backing, too, is a lot of times people don't realize the things that you need to do before you back or the things that you need to do after you back. So always be thinking a step ahead.
That's good.
Before you back. So if you're going to back, you need to look at the situation of during that 30 seconds or a minute or whatever that you're out of lane, what could happen? Will that enemy minion wave reach my tower? Will someone else come and be able to put pressure on my lane or on my tower? Is there a chance that dragon fight could come up, or that their mid is pushing and our mid is getting bullied out and our jungle can't really help, so maybe I could assist mid before I go back top? You want to look at all of the options before you back as well, because you want to know exactly what are you going to buy, what are you going to do after you back, and what is your overall motive in backing? What advantage is it going to give you by backing now as compared to waiting?
Yeah.
And one thing that we haven't mentioned yet, everything you just mentioned is what I was talking about earlier too, like trying to get into that mindset of what am I giving up when I have recall. One thing we haven't mentioned also is that levels can play a really big difference in the early game, especially if your champion has some sort of giant level 6 power spike. And keep in mind that if you are able to stay in lane longer, sometimes that power spike, depending on the situation, might justify you leaving lane earlier or staying in lane to get that level advantage and then capitalize on your opponent.
Yeah.
So if you recall at a bad time, you might lose that experience lead that you might already have, especially if the enemy, teleports back to lane when they're forced out of lane. So things like that are important to keep in mind when you are backing.
Yeah, so I mean, basically, like all these points that these fine gentlemen said, have a plan when you're planning on backing. Make sure you know what you're going to do as soon as you're done backing. As soon as you've left base, make sure you know where you're going. When you're backing, make sure to outweigh the pros and cons. If the enemy laner is backed, you probably won't be giving up a level advantage, so that's usually safe. But if you are, make sure that that level advantage isn't going to cost you a significant amount when you get back. Just pay note to if they do go back, like how much health do you have? Like what's your situation and what kind of gold are they looking at when they're looking to back? Because if they come back with like a fairy charm or like another Doran's shield or another Doran's ring, it's really not that big of a threat. Like I'm not that threatened by an extra Doran's item. But if they're coming back with like, I don't know, a Negatron cloak, or they're coming back with a, big Giant's belt, then, maybe it would be a good time to back and see if you can follow up with that level or with that item advantage, because you don't want to be too behind should you need to trade. So all good tips. Very good. So let's go ahead and move on to our next listener question from Kershaw8706. He's currently in his series, and he's working on maining support and ADC. What he struggles with is item building. He knows what to build on ADCs for the most part, but it looks like he struggles in countering builds and how to work from a disadvantage. So Fraz, how about you take this one?
Yeah, and one point in this message that was sent in that I have to mention is that he mentions, I've switched to mid and I really enjoy playing Ziggs. And I gotta say, excellent choice.
Yeah, and
it's a good choice right now.
So in the question he says, I need help with item building. I don't know what I should be building to counter my opponent in lane. And so there's sort of a balance here. What am I building to counter my opponent versus what am I building that synergizes with my champion's kit? Now, fortunately, you mentioned Ziggs, and this is something I have a lot of experience in. And the main thing you want to get early on a champion like Ziggs, who is very much a mana and cooldown reliant champion, as are a lot of other mages, is you need to get some form of mana or CDR early. So that way you can spam your bombs, you'll inherently have more damage and value out of your kit by being able to cast spells more often. So that's the main thing you want to get. But based on who your opponent is, you can vary what that means. Now, let's say you're up against an Orianna, for instance, or even like a heavy AP like a LeBlanc. Getting a little bit of extra magic resist, also with that, mana regen from a Chalice, excellent option. But if the enemy team has a Mundo and a Volibear, you're still going to get the mana regen and the CDR from Morellonomicon, but this time you're actually going to have an item that's going to help you counter the enemy team composition a bit more effectively. And lastly, I know I these are the three that I go to, but there's a lot more situational that we can talk over and over and over about. But Asterishan actually used the word, it's mandatory if you're playing a mage and you're up against an AD assassin to get Seeker's Arm Guard.
It's
it
mandatory.
Is. Unless you're just like incredibly far ahead, it is mandatory.
It's still mandatory
absolutely.
Eventually. Like you're going to be getting that Zonias no matter what.
So might as well just get it early.
Why not get it early? It gives you a shit ton of armor. It scales well into the mid game. It's fucking cheap. Like
there's
no
good.
reason to not get Seeker's Arm Guard early. There's really
the biggest problem I see with a lot of new players and itemization is they're afraid to slightly alter their build path because they see some guide online and they say, well, this guy starts with this item. If you get that Seekers early, you lower the amount of kill potential on the enemy Zed by like a significant margin. Plus, with a little bit of early mana potions and things like that, you can overcome the fact that you're not going to have as much mana regen early.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, it's good. It's playing against your matchup, and I think when we talk about the Supersode, we'll get more into like the details of like knowing what you're going up against as far as AD, AP, and how to like assess those threats. Yeah, but it's never like there's one specific build path. Sure, like some people may have core items, like on Lux or anyone, you'll have that. Don't be putting ideas in people's heads.
Mage has his core on Lux.
There is obviously like a mana regen item. It's either Morellonomicon or Athene's.
Yeah,
exactly. Your champion synergizes with a certain stat. So you need to make sure you're getting that stat somewhere in your kit. With Ziggs, the one that you mentioned in your email, you need mana regen and you need CDR. That's why you can have that choice of Morellonomicon versus Athene's and kind of work from there.
Doom, you got anything to add?
Yeah, just the main thing I feel with builds is approach every game as if it's a new game, because it is. You cannot go in saying, I'm gonna build this item, I have to build this item. But you want to look at, when you're going into the game, what's your matchup, who are you facing, and how is this probably going to go, so you can get a good idea as you're going into the game, and you have a baseline at least in your head, and then adapt as you go through the game, because going straight for that one item isn't always the best idea. You want to make sure that you're benefiting yourself and your team as much as you can with your build. So
we were talking about this from like a mid lane perspective, but if you're kind of like outside on the in the other lanes and you're kind of confused as to what to build defensively wise, it's generally best to build whatever they have the most of in defense. So say they're heavy on the armor, just build armor. If they're heavy in the magic resist, build magic resist. If they're balanced, find the person that's doing the most damage and counter that. So
and this gets into a point in their like the second part of their email, like they're building for lane and not for the rest of the game. This is totally like, especially for top lane.
Yes.
When they're building tanky, like okay, yes, the person you're going up against is Mundo, and he's dealing mostly magic damage. So you built a full Spirit Visage. But the rest of their team, they have a Zed, they have a Xin Zhao in the jungle, and they have a Vayne AD carry. Most of their damage is going to be attack damage, physical damage. So if you come into team fights at that time with just that...
You get melted.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, you have to realize at a certain point, when early game is over, when turrets start falling, when people start roaming, you have to start building for the rest of the team fights at that point. So in that matchup, it'd be better to realize, okay, maybe I can, instead of just getting the Spirit Visage, I'll just get the a little bit of, I'll get the first part of that item. The help me out here, guys. Spectre's Cowl.
Spectre's
and then go into something different, like a part of a Frozen Heart or something.
Well, and also though, as for say for magic resist items, I find a lot of people tend to go selfish in their builds, and you want to think about your team as well. Because, say, for example, I like to play a lot of tankier junglers, and like I've been playing a lot of Maokai lately. And if you're going against a double AP comp, meaning that two of their members are doing ability power damage, magic damage, majorly, you want to build magic resist. But instead of building like a Spirit Visage, which will only give you magic resist, consider your team and going into team fights. Maybe it might be a good, and this isn't necessarily for mid, but maybe it might be a good idea to instead get a Aegis of the Legion, and then I can either put that into a Locket of the Iron Solari or into a Banner of Command, so that we can move better into the mid and late games. So always think about the step items that you're getting and the different routes for them, because any step item that has multiple routes is usually a safer buy in the earlier game, because you can always switch your build up and switch where you are going with it. Like a Spectre's Cowl is a great item because it goes into a few items, or an Aegis of the Legion is a great item because it goes into a few items. So if you're unsure, start with a step item that fits into a couple items that look useful. And then by the time you get to the point that you can afford that step up item, you'll probably find that you know which one you want to go with now.
Yeah. And let's not forget the core item on every champion. It synergizes super well with their kit, and that's wards.
Yeah.
Wards. Yes.
That's good. Nice.
Yeah.
So speaking of wards,
Okay.
well done. That was
Let's
good.
do it.
Them segues.
We have a listener question from Benetto talking about wards, and he just has a problem with warding, just a straight up problem with warding.
He said,
and he wants to know how can he get better at warding.
Well, he said he has a huge problem warding. I never think about it, even my trinket. I seem to only ward when it directly benefits my champion, like a Lee Sin or a Katarina, because they can jump towards. And when I play support, since I buy Sightstone, some background, I main mid, I play Heimerdinger and Malzahar or Katarina, Akali. Would it be dumb to buy a Sightstone as maybe a third item and then sell it when I need that last item slot for an actual item that will benefit me? Math-wise, it works out very well overall. However, I'm not sure how much it would actually put me behind buying a Sightstone instead of a Death Cap, for example. Okay. First off, your trinket is free vision. You should always be using your trinket. If that thing is on cooldown, you're using it wrong, in my opinion. You need to use your trinket. If you are a mid, your best options are usually going to be the yellow trinket. And then depending on if you have like a range champion, maybe like a Xerath or someone like that can snipe long distances, or Lux, maybe the Scrying Orb would be a good option.
And the red trinket for certain assassins as well.
Yes, so for assassins, red trinket is good. But for the champs that you like, it seems Heimerdinger, Malzahar, Katarina, Akali, the yellow trinket is going to be great for most of them, except maybe Akali. I would consider getting the red trinket.
I honestly, like, if he has a problem with warding, I think you should just get yellow trinket no matter what. Just buy yellow trinket, and until you're comfortable with making sure you drop that thing every minute it's up, then you can swap to other trinkets.
They give you a mini sight stone.
If you can't,
It is. It's literally a mini sight stone, and I love it now. And I think you have to think of it like before you hit level 9 and then after you hit level 9. So before you hit level 9, that sight stone and the trinket, it doesn't do a whole lot. You have to allot that 75 or 100 gold when you back for a ward, and especially a pink ward in the mid lane. Pink wards are huge.
They're also mandatory.
They are mandatory. They are.
They're mandatory on everybody, but especially mid lane.
Bonetto, I'm going to challenge you to do something. And the first thing I'm going to challenge you to do is that every time you go back to base, buy a ward.
I can help you with that.
You should be buying 1 to 2 wards every single time you back. If it seems silly
until you hit level 9. That's the thing. And then as soon as you upgrade that trinket, it's not mandatory because you will always have one up.
Yeah. Yes,
how can you help?
But you need to have a ward to place at almost all times. And if you're not, then you're doing it wrong. Like, I understand wanting to get damage, but here's the thing. If you don't have vision, people are going to die. And you have to think of the game outside of yourself, because this is a team game. This is you're in there with 4 other people. So you putting up a ward, even if you play well and you play safe, it might not be the difference between you dying or not dying, or you escaping a gank or not escaping a gank, but it could be the difference between your teammate getting ganked or not ganked, or your jungler getting counter jungled. You have to ward for more than yourself. But you're going to find too, when you start warding more, you're going to find more opportunities for yourself to carry a game. You're going to find more opportunities that you can catch that person out who's trying something sneaky or trying to sneak a jungle camp or something. You're going to find that you can save that teammate from getting ganked. You're going to find that you can get vision on that objective. And as for selling Sightstone, if you buy Sightstone, you should never sell it, period. Because Sightstone, it gives you other stats. It gives you health, which helps with everything. But also, once you have a Sightstone, you don't have to buy wards. You can keep using your Sightstone. So that's a beautiful thing about a Sightstone.
But
so
on the mid lane, you really shouldn't be buying that.
Okay, I was going to transition
yes,
too.
Yes.
Yeah.
His question is, would it be dumb to buy a Sightstone maybe as a third item?
It's not dumb, but it's I like his mindset thinking. No, I like I need to ward, and he's trying to find ways to do it. But buying a Sightstone isn't that way. It costs 800 gold, and in a role with support, it's very efficient. When you get to the mid lane, your money is going to be best spent for you and the team buying your core items, buying that damage, because that's where the mid lane is really effective.
You want to know how to ward? I'll tell you how to ward. I have the secret. It's waiting. You want to hear it?
Okay, go ahead.
Hear it.
Make an item page for your favorite champions, and in every
Ward.
slot, put 2 wards. Not 1, put 2. Put 2 wards, so that every time you back and you open up that stupid store, you see a ward, and you're reminded every second, shit, I gotta buy a ward. I gotta buy another ward. Shit, I gotta buy another goddamn ward. Literally, that will help you. I promise. I promise. It's worked.
Once you get the upgraded trinkets, you can now hit the maximum amount of wards on the map, which can have 3 regular wards and then 1 pink ward. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 wards that you can have on the map that'll help you move forward in League.
In your game.
Okay, I'm serious though. Put a ward on every single part of a page. It will help you get better at warding. I swear it will. I've done it with 4 people already. I did it with myself. It literally works. It will make you ward. And then when you hit level 9, exactly what Haber said, you upgrade to your mini Sightstone and you are perfectly set. All you really need to do, all you have to do is be diligent about making sure you drop your wards.
I do want to just make sure we fully address that Sightstone mid lane question, though.
Yes.
Because it is a big deal. There is a reason why certain roles tend to gravitate towards getting Sightstone, because they have a lot of inherent utility in their kit. A lot of mid laners have some sort of... They're typically called, AP carries and things like they get power spikes when they finish core items like, Rabadon, Zonias, whatever have you. And by investing that gold early, I mean, yes, it's really nice to have those wards throughout the game, but you might be missing a power spike that you could be using to take your champion and take the lead and really carry from whatever role and champion you're playing on. So I really, like Haber said, it's really good that you're in the mindset like, man, I really need to get more wards. But getting a Sightstone on a lot of the mid laners you mentioned, like a lot of these AP carries and stuff, it's not the best idea.
Yeah, on almost every single mid laner, it's probably an absolutely terrible idea, to be honest. Like, to be completely frank.
To be frank,
it's an awful idea. By the time you actually finish at Sightstone, you're gonna be level 9 anyway. So you're gonna be like, well, maybe not, but it's a sacrifice that you cannot make. I'm sorry. And should I talk about Ruby Sightstone?
No.
We'll do that another day.
Another time.
Half an hour.
Another time.
My last little thing is just that, for example, say when you back and you don't have enough money for that needlessly large rod, think about it or maybe you have just enough, so you have 1,650 gold. You're almost always going to be better off getting the lower tier item, some wards and some pots, because most people who play a little bit safer tend to overall have more success.
Yeah.
I'll always get the big item if I only have enough for that.
Yeah.
I don't.
I have 1,550 gold. Okay, that's a BF sword.
Yep,
I'm
a
gone.
BF sword. It sucks.
Yeah.
I have 14
It's just
gold.
such, it's such
yes.
like a big
All
power
right, in a
spike. You
duo
have
lane-
to get it.
In a duo lane, yes, but in a solo lane, I
get the
think it is
needlessly large
not
rod.
worth it personally. But we'll go into that another day.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, so we talked about items that you don't buy every game, things that you do need every game. One thing everyone has every game is summoner spells, and let's talk about them a bit. We've got a question from Buffy.
Yeah, Buffy writes in, and he's asking about Flash. He has a friend that doesn't take Flash, regardless of whatever champion he's playing, which I find a little discomforting. Maybe you should send him our way. We can give him some help. When do you recommend not taking Flash, and what do you take in its place? So at what possible point, when in the world do we think is it not okay to take Flash?
All right, so Flash is amazing. I'm just gonna say this here, like, Flash is incredible. In fact, it's so good at so many things that you really actually have to have a very specific strategy in mind if you're not gonna go for it. Now, Buffy, I just gotta say, like, you're not in the wrong for kind of being a little bit critical of the fact that your friend is never taking Flash, but then again, it could come down somewhat to the champions he's playing. But before we get into those specific things, let's briefly run down how awesome Flash is. Do you need an escape?
Yeah.
Got it. Do you need to make a play? Got it. I'm going to flash in Tiver Stun. Do I need to get over this wall? Flash. Gotcha. Do you want to outplay someone, do some cool jukes? Flash. It's amazing. It's so good. It's so good, in fact, that the Riot literally has designed the game around this summoner spell. They've come to terms with the fact it's so good, but it looks so cool, and it's such a core component of the game that they can't just be like, all right, well, like, Flash is too good, so now we'll put it on a 30-minute cooldown.
And that's the thing, like, I think everyone's gone through that period in League where they think, why do I need Flash? Because like, you start the game and everyone's like, you have to take Flash. It is mandatory. But then you're looking at all these summoner spells and you think, well, maybe they could be useful here as well. But it's just scenario where Flash in almost every circumstance is going to be the best in slot. And Riot has been okay with that.
Yeah. The problem... Go ahead, Doom.
There's been a lot of times where Riot has looked at it and said, all right, but we have all these other summoner spells. Everyone should be using those and trying those. And there are some cases where Flash is not the best choice.
I disagree.
There are cases. That is
There
about
are-
1 to
I can-
2% of the time.
I disagree, but that's just me.
98% of the
champion
time.
specific.
Champion
then-
specific. 98% of the
Yeah,
time,
I'm
you're
in the middle
going-
ground.
you're going
No,
98% of the time
no.
you're going to get Flash.
I mean,
and that's okay.
There
Yeah,
are
okay.
champions. Olaf, Shaco, two that come to mind immediately.
Well, I
if
would
you're
say even
running
on
in the
them,
jungle, Master Yi, Udyr, heavy gankers,
all
they
the
don't
ones you
need
just
Flash.
mentioned, and I'm sure Aspiration's thinking this. Flash is still a pretty dang good spell.
It
summoner
works,
spell
but
on
it's
them, too.
not necessary. It's not necessary compared to the other champions that take it.
That's just how, I mean, it's just how I feel. Like, I disagree, honestly. I think Flash is the end all be all of summoners.
It's not.
That's how I feel. That's
When
literally
you're
how I feel.
Shaco, when you have a Flash every
Doesn't
3
matter.
seconds,
I
you
play
don't-
Flash on
because she has
Kassadin. I
3
take Flash on
flashes,
whoever
and then I take
goddamn
Flash
want.
on Ari.
But it's,
Okay.
at some
Let's
point, it
get
just
back.
becomes redundant, and there are better things that you can use in that slot for those specific champions. But like it is like 98% of the time.
Totally. Yeah,
You
it's
will be
really
taking
rare.
Flash.
Like you
And-
mentioned Shaco. Shaco has a lot of kill pressure early if he's able to
Mhm.
take Ignite. If you
Hecarim in the
take-
top lane.
Singed is able to, kind of run around and run laps around people if he has Ghost instead of, Flash. Because if you have Flash, I mean, you'll just be far away, but Ghost, you'll run laps around people.
Your
Like, there's
poison
a
trail
lot.
actually stops.
Teleport is actually, for some certain backdoor champions, there's certain strategies you can take advantage of by getting rid of Flash, but there's never really a situation where Flash is bad. Flash is so good
Yeah.
that it really can work on anyone.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's literally
It's always
all I'm
good,
saying.
but there are other scenarios.
There
No, you
are
are flat
sim-
out denying.
There are
You're-
s- there
You're
are
creating your own
scenarios.
church of Flash here.
No.
You have to look at it though from the aspects that whatever summoner spell that you have in that place,
Stuck with.
there is you have a certain disadvantage, and you have a disadvantage when you don't have it up when Flash
Exactly.
is on cooldown. So your friend needs to really look at that aspect. Like, for example, Shaco. A lot of people don't do it on Shaco because he basically has a built-in Flash. However, I will always, if I see the enemy jungler is a Shaco
Yep.
and he has Smite Ignite, I am
Always.
going to every time invade you because I know you're starting Jack in the Box, and I know that is your only thing. You do not have an escape. You do not have enough damage to put on me, and
This
you
is my
cannot
point.
get away from me. I'm
This-
going to kill you every single time.
Yeah. And
Or steal buffs. So what you have to look at is what are the disadvantages or advantages. Now, if your team protects you and you are able to not get set behind and you're early or that you don't get invaded, stuff like that, that's great. Now you have an advantage. But most of the time, not having Flash is going to put you at a certain disadvantage. So your friend needs to really look at that disadvantage that it's going to put him in, especially with the champs he plays, and depending on where he's at level wise. Overall, unless you're a higher elo, a lot of people do not function well without Flash in
Oh
lower
my god!
elos.
Like
So-
I was going through like my Smurf account trying to level it up. In those levels 1 through 11, I'm just saying, like, just please give me my Flash. I just want my Flash. Give it to me. I know you have it at level 12. I want it now.
all right.
It was so frustrating because it's bar none. It is the best summoner spell.
Okay, thank you. I'm dying. I want to say why. It's my turn to defend myself, okay?
Okay. Go ahead.
Flash,
Yeah.
I think Flash should be brought in every single situation in solo queue, and probably in almost every single situation in ranked 5s, and not in the LCS. If you're in the LCS, you can do different stuff. If you're in Challenger, you're up in that crazy area, you can do different stuff. For the majority, for the 95% rest of us, we have to take Flash in every single scenario, unless we are, without a doubt, 100% certain that we can't find some use for it. And I don't think that's possible. I really don't think it's possible.
And
because
that's not just from a defensive aspect, that's
it's
also from an
everything.
aggressive aspect.
It's literally
Yes.
every part of Flash. Everything about Flash is better than every other spell. And there's nothing anyone can say that will convince me otherwise. Flash lets you get on someone immediately. Literally onto somebody. If they're not paying attention, or even if they are paying attention, Flash literally puts you on them, puts you somewhere else. It does something no other ability can do. And yes, you brought up
It's
people that
instant, yeah.
have, you brought up people that have abilities, that have like ways of doing that, but using an ability to compensate for a lack of something else is just poor management. It really is. Like, a lot of people, it just is. I think that flash is necessary on people, even with like.
Well, I think it's
gap
realizing
closers.
your own kit and how it works so you can better utilize it.
Well,
In those cases, you don't have to take flash because other ones synergize with your kit well.
but you're
And I'm saying in very specific
sacrificing.
cases.
And I think in those cases, even in those cases, it's still better to pull flash out because you're trying to spread yourself so thin that you're not primarily focusing on what you're good at. Shaco's amazing at getting in and getting out. He doesn't need an ignite to make him better at that. He's already really good at it, and I don't know why people
it
think
helps
that he
him-
needs to. Helps him what? Counter jungle once every few seconds.
Counter jungle. What? It helps him gank.
It helps him gank again.
you can get that kill. You can get that level
Until
two.
it really ganks,
until
so
he
can
gets
get that
cat,
really
And
strong
that's
wall.
where-
and then he gets
oh
caught out,
my-
and then he's screwed.
Oh
This
my
is my whole point, though.
God.
Like, flash can be used in so many different ways, and in so
Once
many-
every 5 minutes.
It doesn't matter if that's all you need
That-
to
no,
save
whoa,
your
whoa,
life or get yourself
whoa!
out of something. Like, it is the best possible thing.
That totally matters, and that's a point I need to bring up. It's only up once every 5 minutes. So if you're
And it
taking
can
flash, like
save
in
your
most,
freaking
it shut
life.
the hell up. And if you take it in almost every matchup where you should, you have to have to judge what you're doing and change how your play style when it's down or when it's up.
Well, of course, but if you have to change your entire playstyle because you don't have it, that's a problem.
But you're not.
Like, if those niche situations where, say, Ghost is just better, now you have to think, okay, now I have Ghost. And then that one split second happens where you're like, oh man, I have Flash. And then you press D and you're like, fuck! I don't have Flash. How many times does that happen to us?
Take this as
Seriously?
mid laner's bias here.
It's not, it's
It's mid laner's bias.
It's not.
But Azuration, what if you're Lux?
If I'm Lux, I still run Flash. if I'm
obviously.
anyone, if I'm anyone, I run Flash.
I'll put it this way: if you could take Flash twice, I would take Flash.
Hell
twice.
yeah!
It's that good. It's amazing. But
I
to
don't
Haber's
think-
point, I think we should try and round this out because I
Yeah.
think this is going to
Yes.
go on for a while. Flash is incredible. You can run it on just about anyone. But there are
Punch
certain
Azuration
champions
in
with
the
specific
face here.
strategies that you can get by without it. But there's also never anything wrong with taking Flash on
Yes.
Yeah.
every champion in
think-
League of Legends.
I think
And
that's.
I'll never
the
knock
point.
anyone for taking flash, but I'm saying
No,
there's other
no.
things to do.
The point I
Yeah,
want to
and
hit
as a
home.
jungler, if I see that you don't have Flash or
Oh, yeah.
Flash is down, you're on my target list. I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to camp your lane, period. Don't care. You want to say it's cheap, whatever. I don't care. It's going to get me kills and it's going to piss you off. So,
And if you don't have Flash, like even if it's on cooldown, if you don't have Flash outright, I'm gonna go to your lane. I'm sorry.
oh, hell yes.
If you have
Oh, yeah.
Ghost up in the top lane, I don't give a fuck. I have a stun. Like, whatever. You're a little quicker. No big deal. Like,
And-
that's why I think Flash is so important, is because it not only does it, like, you may not know that Kassadin just used his ultimate when he come in for a gank, but you do know that he blew his Flash 20 seconds ago. You have no idea if Shako has his teleport, like his jump up. What you do know is that he just blew his Flash like 2 minutes ago. These are things that you can just, like, not only does Flash work in the aggressive standpoint of just knowing, like, okay, I can get out of any situation I want to, but, like, when you see someone with Flash, you're more tentative when you're talking about, okay, am I going to gank this person? Am I even going to engage on this person? Like, as Lux, if I know that they have Flash up, am I going to blow my whole combo? No. Like, there's a lot of aspects to Flash that I think people disregard, and they'll just say, nah, you can bring it into another point. It's like people with Smite saying, okay, I don't need Smite. I'm Fiddle. I can clear just fine. I don't need
Oh
Smite.
my God,
That
let's
doesn't
not
matter.
go down this
It
rabbit
doesn't
hole.
matter.
Yeah,
You
let's-
still need Flash.
Yeah, I think we've
that's all I'm
we've
saying.
like
You
touched
need
on all the
Flash.
points that we can
Flash is
before
really
devolving into fist
Okay,
fights.
I'm sorry.
So we're gonna move on to our next question here. This is from Ashmore saying, "Hello everybody. I play with a group of friends on regularly each week, and due to largely being polite and tactful when addressing mistakes or shortcomings, I find myself in the position of being the person in the group will universally listen to. The problem is, because of the personalities we play with, it is largely my responsibility to tell people when they stop playing so aggressively, to point things out on the minimap and generally manage team morale. I find it extremely difficult to try to do all these things while simultaneously planning for objectives and monitoring timers. what should I do? Should I try to manage my team's morale and play a reactionary style, focus on shot calling, and try to have them deal with their emotions themselves?
This is a good question. I really like
This
this
is.
question.
Yeah, interesting.
This is okay. Before you start, Haber, I gotta say I like where you're coming out with this. Like you got a good head on you. You know that you're the responsible and the positive one. So you try and take command and make sure that you lead your team to victory. And first off, I think we can all appreciate that because League kind of has a bad reputation around it as just being kind of toxic. You're that light, buddy. We're thankful for you. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think something that's important here is realizing the difference between just leading someone and micromanaging people. An effective leader doesn't do everything for the people he's with. He assigns things out to people and lets them and like controls how they do it. So you can get into a lobby here and say, okay, whoever's playing support, it's going to be your job to monitor the dragon timer. I want you to do that. And if they know ahead of time that they're supposed to be setting that up, I can guarantee you they're going to be paying more attention to that. And when you start delegating out more of these responsibilities, you can focus on sort of the bigger things yourself. So you don't have to be constantly checking, okay, did they ward there? Did they get dragon? When are summoners down? You can focus more on, okay, I'm going to come bottom here in the next minute. Make sure you're ready for that. And then it's, oh, okay, we're good. You know, that's just sort of how that stuff works when you want to be an effective leader.
Yeah. I had a point. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I mean, when it comes to what you're saying, yeah, being that person, that's awesome that you're being that.
Oh.
However, you have to look at your performance in solo queue as compared to when you play with them and see how you do overall, your kill death ratio, how you're warding, whether you're winning your lanes or not, all those sorts of things. Take those into account. Also look at, if you guys play ranked, what are the ranks of you versus all your teammates? And it's okay to play with people who are lower skill level or equal skill level or higher skill level and all those things. But overall, a player who has a better macro understanding of the game and is able to look at all the fine points from a far out standpoint like you are, it seems, tend to do better overall. And your friends, everyone has their shortcomings, period. But if you're the one who's managing all of their shortcomings, imagine if your focus that you're putting on them, you could put towards your own game. Would that make you significantly better or not? There's an argument that it could and it couldn't. I would say overall it probably would. You would probably be better on your own. So I think it comes down to, are you willing to wear everyone else's albatross, wear all your friends' albatross, or are you going to instead start using your gift that you have to start saying, hey guys, okay, this is what you need to work on. This is what you need to work on. This is what you need to work on. And you guys need to do that individually so that all together we'll all get better, because I notice what you do wrong. You notice what I do wrong. And the best person to find your shortcomings is usually someone else who's looking at it from an outside standpoint. So I'm sure that they could point out stuff that you do wrong, and that's fine. So use that to build off each other so that you guys can all get better instead of you bearing the weight of everyone else's negatives.
I want to reel this back just a little bit because, Doom, you touched on this a little bit, and I think it's a really important distinction here. There's a difference between just playing a team builder, normal games and stuff with your friends of a bunch of different skill levels and just, okay, you happen to be the one who does a lot of the communication. That's one thing. And it's another thing when you got a group of 5 people together and you're trying to be a dedicated rank 5s team. In the latter scenario, shot calling and team communication is a huge part of being a successful ranked 5s team. And in order to get that going, you should have a couple conversations with your team members about who is going to call things out and who is going to plan things, and then try and keep the the communications as clear and distinct as possible. If you're just playing normal games with your friends and you just happen to be the one that the voice of reason, or maybe you know a bit more about the game than your friends, then the best advice I have is just try and keep things positive and don't be overly critical of someone, especially if you know that they're the type of person that doesn't respond too well to it. Maybe not in that moment. Don't say like, "Why'd you do that? Why'd you do that?"
Yeah.
But maybe
never
help
say
them
why.
after the game or something.
Never try and I don't want to say support a friend because that's terrible, but don't try and like fix someone's mistake in the middle of a game. Oftentimes, if they did
It's
something
like going
wrong,
into a relationship.
Yeah.
You never go into a relationship trying to fix somebody.
yeah,
No.
It's going to end up bad.
And another like in game, if you notice someone,
It's going to be another Taylor Swift song.
Hey, I want to be a Taylor Swift song.
Well, that's your prerogative.
Anyway, so if you're in game and you see a friend mess up, don't talk about it like immediately. It's something that I've noticed happen, and I've done it multiple times, and I know this out of experience. More often than not, they freak out, and then they only get more angry. So if they do something wrong and they get hurt, they die, they lose something or whatever, don't talk about it immediately. Like, put it on the back burner, be like, hey, I need to make sure I need to talk about that Ash's flash, something like that. Or, just don't do it immediately, because oftentimes it'll just tilt your ally, and then you're kind of screwed. Because
A lot of times your ally knows that they've done something wrong. In fact, the
Yeah.
vast majority of the time they do. You rubbing it in or saying, "Why'd you do that?" is just it could make things go way, way worse. So don't focus on, complimenting them when they do something right, or just positive communication, and it's going to help you out even in solo queue a lot more.
Yeah. And another note about helping friends. This is something that we all do, so you take it personally. We understand, like, it's kind of difficult, and you're trying to decide, oh, what do I do? What do I do? Like, I want to help them, and I want to, be a supportive player. You got to make sure, first and foremost, that you're playing to your best abilities. Doom touched on this. You got to play to make sure that you're doing your best. And if you are spending more time
for yourself.
if you're spending more time paying attention to what they're doing, looking at the bot lane, even though you're top, looking at jungle, even though you're mid, whatever, like, if you're not focused on what you're doing, you're not going to succeed. And if you aren't succeeding, your team's not going to succeed. So first and foremost, make sure you focus on what you're doing. Focus. And then talk to your teammates, figure out what's going on. If something's wrong, maybe you can address it with them, try and figure out how to help them if they need a gank, yada yada, those sorts of things. But never try, it's just something that I learned, never try to help a player get better in a game. It generally doesn't work, usually.
Yeah. And I think, as Duration's right, you have to take time for yourself. And I think, like, there may just be times where, like, if they invite you to a game, you just have to say, you know what, I got to just play by myself for a little while. Because, we've all been in that role of, hey, my other friends are just starting to play League right now, and I've got to get them through it. Because it's really frustrating, and it's no one's fault. There's just so much to learn, and you have to be that teacher for them.
Yeah.
So you have to take time away from them just to kind of de-stress. If it's playing rank games on your own, whatever you love to do in League, you have to do it. If you do it 24/7, you're just going to be completely burnt out.
Yeah, and you're not alone. Remember that. Like, if you feel like some player needs specific help in something, send them over to someone. Like, it doesn't even have to just be us. And I want to say send them to us, but it doesn't have to be.
The
Like,
T-Force community, I know, will
anybody-
always be there to help you.
There's
Yes.
a bunch of people here in the T-Force community that's looking out for people. Like, a bunch of people here that want to help. So if there's someone in particular that you're like, okay, like, I don't know how to help you anymore. Like, man, I don't know what to do. So if you need more help, and you feel like they need more help, send them to people that do this kind of as a living. Like, this is what we do. This is what we love to do, and we're really pretty decent at it. So if you need more help, feel free to ask in and have them call in and see if we can't help them as well. But moving on, we got one last question.
Yeah, we can fit this last question
Yeah.
in here. Saita writes in, says, I'm starting my promos, and I'm noticing that I've been doing pretty well as a single unit, but teams aren't working well together. Would you say it's really good to play a carry champions, carry in quotations, in solo queue so you can carry a game? I was playing LeBlanc mid, and I totally destroyed my lane. I did my best to roam, but I couldn't help other lanes as much. And once team fights happened, we just couldn't do anything. I would always get a kill or two, but that's about it. would you recommend playing a carry type champion in each role? If so, what would you recommend? I'm mainly mid and support, but would love to hear your opinions on each lane.
Right. Okay. So, the whole idea of carry is kind of one that I feel like we need to touch on. Somebody that carries is usually somebody that is getting all the kills or doing the most damage. Correct? Is kind of what we're talking about.
Depends on the role.
Yeah,
Depending on the role. Yeah. Some of them. Well, okay. Like I'm not saying the act of carrying, but being a carry is entitled to doing a crap ton of damage and getting a lot of kills, or just being that general playmaker, right?
So why don't we approach this from the mid lane, because that's what he's writing about.
So from the mid lane perspective, we have carries all the time. I play Lux. I know I mentioned Lux in the email, and I said, specific carries are really good in specific scenarios. You have to understand that when you're going into a game, any certain amount of scenario could happen. There's 125 champions at 5 different champions per slot. There's millions of different types of scenarios that you're going to be in, and in one game, a bunch. So a carry may not always be the best option. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. And you shouldn't take it as a bad thing. But carry, by definition, the way we're talking about is people that do a lot of damage or get a lot of kills, doesn't necessarily, mean that it's needed in every situation. And that doesn't mean picking a different champion. So LeBlanc, for example, can carry in different ways other than doing a carry by snaring a bunch of people. She has the option to snare 2 people if she chooses to. She's also really good at baiting. She's also really good at kiting. She can do other things aside from carrying. So you say you wreck your opponent in lane. And that's good. I mean, that's awesome. And then you try and roam, and maybe you aren't finding as much success in roaming, but maybe you need to look at it from a different perspective. Picking a carry doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to carry the game alone. So doing things that are supportive on the side will help you find a lot of success. I don't think you should pick a carry in every single game. I think you should always pick to see what your team needs, especially in solo queue. Now, I'm a hypocrite. I will pick Lux if I feel like picking Lux, even if she's not the best option. So I do that sometimes, and if that's just how it is, then you need to make sure that you're playing to your best ability, because oftentimes you'll be in a situation where someone didn't pick something that we needed for the team, and now you may have to step up and do it. And this is just adapting your play style. I think the best way to answer this question for you is just realizing when you need to do something other than try and carry. And that could be things like warding. It could be as simple as giving up a kill for the ADC. There's a lot of different ways that you could find yourself, in a situation that helps the team instead of just helping yourself. Because it looks like you focus on helping yourself first and then helping your team. And everybody here will probably say, always look to help your team. Yes. Always, first and foremost, help your team.
Need to jump in. I really
Please go ahead. I dropped a lot of information, and
I want to really focus on the central question that Cito leaves at the end is: would you recommend playing carry type champions in each role?
Not
and
necessarily.
I fundamentally think that if you're asking this question, you're probably thinking about the game in the wrong way. And why I say that is because when you ask a question like that, a lot of people tend to harp on things like KDA and burst damage and your ability to delete someone, and then they think that this is what carries games, and that is not it at all. That's a component for certain champions. But this is an objective-based game, and it's a game with 5 players on both sides. Your ability to carry a game is your ability to be comfortable on a particular champion and to utilize that champion's strengths to win the game. Janna's not going to delete someone, but a good Janna player
he's
can
talking
carry
about
the game.
LeBlanc here, especially in the mid lane, and as much as we want to say she has utility, she can do other things. Her main job is deleting one person, and you can use those kills to your advantage. I don't know, maybe you're getting kills and you're not doing anything with that. The big thing, a lot of people do is they'll go down bottom, they'll roam, they'll get a kill, and then they'll just back.
Yeah.
You have to try to make sure you have another objective. The kill should never be the primary objective. There should always be something that follows after that. And if you say you like LeBlanc and it's been doing well, you've been doing well with it, go ahead, keep pursuing that. But you need to find another way besides just kills to start playing the game.
I recommend your comfortable champions, the champions that you perform well on and feel enjoy playing, not just the champions that are considered high tier carries and things like that.
Yes.
I care if I play a lot of Ziggs because I'm able to team fight well with Ziggs. I'm able to lane well with Ziggs. I'm able to do a lot of things well, and that translates to a higher success rate on him for me than
My
if I were
highest
to
win
play.
rate is on brand support.
Yeah, and I
It
think
is.
honestly, win rates, they get a bad flack, but your personal win rate on a champion
Personal is a big thing.
over a long period of time is much more telling than things like a KDA, for example. I personally played a lot of Riven a long ways back, and I had like a high KDA. I stomped a bunch of lanes, but I didn't win that many games because I didn't understand other parts of the game. I didn't know how to team fight with her that well. I didn't know how to do what do I do after the laning phase. And then ultimately, I was kind of underperforming on her, and I was like, oh, I'm playing a carry and I'm getting fed. Why, this means I should be winning. But there's a lot more to this game than just the early game kills.
Yeah, I mean, like if you come, like I've had questions about this before, and like people will give me their like op.gg profile, and I'll look and I'll say like, oh, well, your Jinx that you like to play right now, you're only winning 20% of your games, but your play on Ashe, you have like a 78% win rate. Why don't you focus more on that?
Yep. And overall, too, you need to look at. So if you're playing I like what you were saying, Frost, about focusing on your next move. And this is something I've personally been working on a lot, is when you do something, what's your next move? So you say you're LeBlanc and you roam down lane and you get a kill. Great. Now, does that free it up so that you can pressure dragon? Does that free it up so that you can take that tower? Does that free it up so you can go steal the jungler's blue? Like, do something else when you get that kill, because now everything you do has an end game. And that end game is, destroying the Nexus is the ultimate goal. You could be 31-30 and still lose a game because you didn't blow up their damn Nexus.
Yeah.
So
back in season 3, when I was still like in bronze, climbing through bronze, I played a lot of Ezreal, and it wasn't the games where I got a lot of kills. And I just started like I'd go back through all my games and watch them to see what worked and what didn't work. And I realized, like the games where I push early, I get that bottom tower and then immediately roam up to mid and start pushing that. We won almost all of them because we were able to get objectives early.
Exactly. You were looking at the team. Like, you weren't just looking at yourself. You weren't looking at, oh, I'm able to carry because I'm getting a lot of damage down, I'm getting a lot of kills, that sort of thing. You're looking at what you can do for
and if you are in bronze, I
team.
highly recommend that strategy.
Yeah, and this is the kind of point that I want to hit home now, rotating around, is when I said that carries are people that do a lot of damage and get a lot of kills. That's not what a carry is. A carry is somebody that can actually make plays. Froz, touched on this. Haber, we all are pointing at it, is a carry is somebody that can bring their team to victory almost single-handedly, and just by doing stuff, not by killing people, not by calling stuff out. It's a mixture of everything. You're just able to just so effectively work your champion in a way that you begin to just win games, and that doesn't happen early. You may say you carry a game and maybe you do the most damage, you get a lot of kills, that sort of thing, but if you I bet you didn't actually carry your game. I bet you the vision on the support or the jungler's awesome dragons by himself, I'll bet you a lot of that was a lot of luck, and you happen to just get lucky with a good team. I don't want to say that's necessarily true.
Yeah, maybe
but
like your LeBlanc play in itself is pretty good.
Yeah.
But you need to work on how you're going to move that outside of your own.
You're not carrying. You're a carry, but you're not carrying.
I don't like the
playing
mindset that it's like, okay, would you recommend playing carry type champions in each role? No, I don't. I recommend playing whatever you are most comfortable and effective at. And every single champion in League of Legends can be played up to like a diamond, like high, the highest tier.
And they can carry on them.
And they can carry on them. So I'm not saying you need to play X champion. Play whatever works for you.
And the team. Don't ever forget the team. Don't, if you're the last person to pick and you're stuck with, I don't know, support, and you're like, well, I've been playing a shit ton of Singed and my win rate's amazing. Honestly, I'm sorry, I'm not going to recommend Singed in the support role. I'm just not.
Okay.
You gotta stick
Thank
to
you. I thought you were
yeah.
going somewhere completely different. That
You
way.
gotta stick.
Blink CC though.
This is something that I really think that we need to bring back to you guys is make sure you're focusing on the team. Like this is not a solo game. Solo queue is called solo queue, but it's not like just because you're playing solo queue doesn't mean you're playing alone. You're not alone in this game ever. Are you alone in this game? So you should never try and think with that mindset. Carrying alone will only make you lose. I promise you.
Yeah.
Focus on focus. Yeah. It doesn't even matter. Like even people that are ungodly.
Like I love going back through and watching like when the season first starts and you see like all the really high players going through or like when they do like the unranked challenger sort of thing. They're never alone the whole time. They go other places. They help the rest of their team.
This game is not about being alone. Like no part of this game is about.
No matter how fed you are, you will never. There's never been a true 1v5 where the one person comes out ahead.
Yeah. So always think to your team and focus on that, and maybe reanalyze a little how like what your idea of carrying is, because that might be a little bit to work on as well.
And if you need us to come watch a replay, just send him over to us. Then I can transition this here into the outro here. If you want to send us emails, whether it's coaching, replays, questions for the Supersode, #Supersode on Twitter. Anyways,
#Supersode.
It's gonna you can send us your emails and stuff at forwards@trinityforcepodcast.com. That's the word for. And then you can find us on Twitter
the number 4
Forwards Podcast with the number 4, all using the #Supersode if you want to get some ideas thrown out there as well.
Please do, because we would love some. If there's something that you feel particularly confused about, like say you don't, I mean, we're gonna touch on penetration and those sorts of things. But anything that you really want to know, feel free in that Supersode, tweet at us, let us know. Let us know what you want to know. If you want to know about that, we can talk about it.
Yeah. All right. Thanks everyone for joining.
Take it easy, guys.
Yeah, we'll
Thank
see you
so
later.
much, guys.
Flash
Thanks
is
for
awesome.
Flash. Oh God.
We've talked that to death. Holy crap.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thanks for listening to the Four Wards Podcast, part of the Trinity Force Network. If you'd like to leave feedback or questions for the crew, you can reach us at forwards@trinityforcepodcast.com. If you'd like an easy way to download the podcast, you can visit us at forwards.trinityforcepodcast.com. You can also reach us on Twitter at forwardspodcast with the number 4. If you want to listen to all the other great T-Force Network podcasts, you can find them at www.trinityforcepodcast.com. Thanks for listening to the Four Wards Podcast. We'll be back next time with more ways to help you move forward in League.